The courtroom smelled like old paper, cold metal, and the faint bite of disinfectant. The ceiling lights were too bright, the kind that made everyone look tired, even the people pretending they weren't. On the front bench, Judge Theodore Grayson leaned back like the whole building belonged to him. Silver hair, sharp eyes, a smile that did not reach his face. At the defense table stood someone who looked like she had taken the wrong door and wandered into the wrong world. Her name was Lila Carter, 17 years old. Small frame, messy curls pulled into a loose bun, a plain gray hoodie under a thrift store blazer that didn't fit right, a battered backpack at her feet, stuffed so full it refused to close. She held a stack of papers with both hands like they might slide away if she loosened her grip. The prosecutor, Marcus Hale, barely looked up from his tablet. The defendant beside Lila did not stop shaking his knee. That defendant was Dr. Samuel Okoye, a hospital surgeon with a clean record and a tired face, now accused of stealing prescription painkillers from the hospital pharmacy and selling them through a black market chain. If convicted, he would lose his license, go to prison, and his family would lose everything. And the man sitting 3 rows behind the prosecutor, watching with the calm focus of someone at a business meeting, was Victor Lang. Lang didn't wear a badge. He didn't need one. He wore a tailored suit, a subtle watch, and the relaxed confidence of a man who benefited from blame landing on anyone but him. Judge Grayson tapped his gavel once, not to call order, but to remind the room who controlled the oxygen. "Miss Carter," the judge said, looking down at Lila like she was a curious stain on the floor. "Are you aware of where you are?" A few people chuckled. A court officer near the wall smirked. Even the clerk's mouth twitched. "This is a court of law," Judge Grayson continued, voice dripping with mock patience. "Not some school debate club. I don't know why the court allowed this stunt." Lila swallowed once. Her cheeks flushed, but her eyes stayed steady. "Your Honor," she began. No, the judge waved her off like smoke. "Save it. We don't have time for juvenile antics. Mr. Okoye deserves proper counsel, not." His gaze flicked to her hoodie. "Whatever this is." Dr. Okoye's hands tightened around the edge of the table. He whispered, barely audible, "Lila." Lila didn't look at him. Not yet. She looked at Judge Grayson, and she said calmly, "With respect, Your Honor, the only thing juvenile in this courtroom is the assumption that competence has a certain face." The laughter died in a strange, sudden way, like someone had snapped off a radio. But then the prosecutor scoffed, and the room tried to return to its old rhythm. Judge Grayson leaned forward. "Excuse me." Lila lifted one page from her stack. "I'm requesting leave to argue a limited motion on the admissibility of the hospital audit summary and the pharmacy access logs. Those documents are the core of the state's case." Marcus Hale finally looked up. His expression said, "Really? Her?" Judge Grayson's smile widened, amused again. "You're requesting leave to argue. Based on what authority?" Lila reached into her blazer pocket and slid a small laminated card onto the table for the bailiff to carry up. It wasn't a student ID. It was a bar card. The bailiff's eyebrows jumped as he handed it to the clerk, and the clerk's eyes widened before she passed it to the judge. Judge Grayson's smile froze in place. He stared at the card, then at her, then back at the card, as if it had turned into something else in his hands. Lila's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Lila Carter," she said, "admitted to the bar under the state's early admission rule for exceptional candidates. Licensed counsel of record. I filed my appearance yesterday, stamped by this court." The judge's face tightened. A heavy silence pressed down on everyone. Even Marcus Hale stopped typing. But then Judge Grayson exhaled through his nose, as if annoyed the world had surprised him. "I see," he said, and the words sounded like a door locking. "Then perhaps you can explain why you chose to present yourself like a child." Lila glanced down at her hoodie. "I presented myself like someone who did not expect respect to be given freely." A few heads turned. A few people shifted in their seats, because now the room was watching differently. But then Judge Grayson straightened, skepticism returning like armor. "Very well, Miss Carter," he said. You may speak for exactly 5 minutes, and I assure you, if you waste this court's time, I will not hesitate to remove you from this case. Understood? Understood, Lila said. She placed her papers down slowly, as if setting a fragile thing on a table. Then she pointed, not dramatically, but precisely. The state's evidence relies on 2 pillars, she said. First, a summary audit report claiming controlled substances were missing under Dr. Okoye's watch. Second, access logs showing his badge entered the pharmacy during the time windows of those missing counts. She looked at the prosecutor. Mr. Hale wants the court to treat those logs as unquestionable. Hale shrugged. They're generated automatically by the hospital security system. Lila nodded once. That's what makes them valuable, and that's what makes them dangerous, because people don't question computers the way they question humans. One detail changed everything, but the room didn't know it yet. Lila lifted a sealed evidence envelope from her backpack. The clerk leaned forward, as if she might be scolded for pulling anything out, but Lila held it up with the clean confidence of procedure. I submitted a discovery request, Lila said, and the state produced an audit summary, but the underlying raw data was delayed until last night. She paused just long enough to let the words land, and when I reviewed the raw data, Your Honor, it did not match the summary. Judge Grayson narrowed his eyes. Explain. Lila turned one page over, showing a simple table. The summary says 312 vials unaccounted for over 6 weeks. She tapped the number. The raw inventory file shows 312 vials counted as transferred, not missing. Transferred to a unit labeled North Campus Storage, a location that does not exist on the hospital's public map. A murmur rolled through the seats behind them. Dr. Okoye's head lifted sharply. He looked at her like he was seeing oxygen for the first time in days. Hale leaned forward. Your Honor, she's interpreting data without context. Lila didn't flinch. I asked for context. I asked the hospital compliance office for the transfer authorization form. They told me it was unavailable. Judge Grayson's fingers tapped his bench. And why is that relevant to a motion on admissibility? Because the summary audit report is not a neutral record, Lila said. It's a narrative, and narratives are easy to shape. The raw file is the record. If the summary misstates the record, it misleads the court. She paused, then added, and if the state knowingly relied on a misleading summary, that's a problem bigger than my hoodie. The prosecutor's eyes flashed. Judge Grayson's voice sharpened. Careful, Miss Carter. Lila nodded. I will be. She reached into her backpack again and pulled out a small black USB drive sealed in a clear evidence bag with her signature across the tape. This is the proof object, she said. A secure copy of the hospital's raw inventory export, the access logs, and the security camera index for the pharmacy hallway. Hale scoffed again. She can't just walk in here with a USB drive and claim it's evidence. I'm not claiming, Lila said. I'm requesting the court order an independent verification by a neutral expert, specifically a digital forensics analyst. At the words neutral expert, a woman seated near the middle row looked up. She wore plain clothes, hair pulled back, an ID badge clipped to her belt. She wasn't smiling. Her name was Dana Sloan, a state-contracted digital forensics analyst who had testified in dozens of cases. She had come today because the state had listed her as a possible witness, someone who could explain the logs if needed. Lila looked directly at Dana. Miss Sloan, Lila said, can you tell the court whether badge access logs can be altered? Dana's eyes flicked to Judge Grayson, then to the prosecutor, then back to Lila. Technically, Dana said carefully, yes. Any log stored in a database can be edited by someone with sufficient permissions. The question is whether it was. Lila nodded. Exactly. And that's why we verify. Judge Grayson leaned back again, but now his smugness had a crack in it. You're asking for a fishing expedition, he said. I'm asking for basic integrity, Lila replied, because my client is facing the loss of his freedom based on digital entries that are treated like gospel. But then the system pushed back, hard. Hale stood, voice smooth. Your Honor, this is an outrageous stunt. Miss Carter is 17. She's barely out of high school. The state requests the court evaluate her competence and consider appointing standby counsel. The word 17 hit the room like a thrown stone. Whispers started again. Heads turned. Faces weighed her. Judge Grayson looked at Lila with a new kind of interest. Not respect, more like an opportunity. Miss Carter, he said slowly. How old are you? 17, Lila answered. The judge's lips pressed together. Then perhaps we should also consider whether you're being used, whether you're capable of handling a felony defense. Lila felt Dr. Okoye beside her tense again, like hope was being pulled away inch by inch. She didn't rush. She said, Your Honor, I'm not here because it's fun. I'm here because I've prepared more for this case than anyone in this room expects a teenager to prepare. And then she opened her backpack and pulled out something heavier than papers, a thick binder with tabs, labels, and color-coded notes. She set it on the table with a soft thud. I have the inventory chain of custody history, she said. I have the badge issuance records. I have shift schedules. I have the pharmacy staffing rosters. I have the security camera maintenance logs. Hale raised his brows. You have all that? I requested it, Lila said, repeatedly. Judge Grayson stared at the binder as if it offended him. But you know what I don't have? Lila asked, voice dropping slightly. I don't have the missing transfer authorization form, and I don't have the network administrator audit trail showing who accessed the log database. She looked up, because someone is withholding it. But then the judge's patience snapped like a thin wire. This court will not allow accusations without proof, Judge Grayson said. If you cannot proceed respectfully, you will be sanctioned, and if you cannot proceed competently, you will be removed. The room held its breath. Lila didn't argue emotion with emotion. She argued procedure with procedure. Then grant me verification, she said. Order the hospital to preserve the database. Order production of the admin audit trail. Allow Miss Sloan to authenticate the raw files. Judge Grayson's jaw flexed. For a second, it looked like he might refuse just to prove he could. And then Victor Lang, sitting behind the prosecutor, shifted in his seat for the first time. It was small, but Lila saw it. And that's when a short flashback punched through her calm. 2 years earlier, she had sat in a visiting room with her father, a public defender who had been ruined by a corruption case that made headlines for a week and then vanished. He had leaned forward behind the glass and said, If they ever come for you, they won't come with fists. They'll come with paperwork. He had smiled sadly. Promise me you'll learn the language of their lies. Lila had promised, and the next month her father died, still labeled a man who cut corners. Still blamed, still alone. That promise was why she was here. That promise was why she did not blink now. One detail changed everything, and it was Victor Lang's quiet movement. Hale cleared his throat. Your Honor, before we indulge this theater, the state would like to submit additional evidence. He held up a printed photo and a page of logs. This is a still image from the hospital parking garage camera, Hale said. It shows Dr. Okoye entering the garage at 2:14 a.m. on the night the largest shortage occurred. And this is the pharmacy badge log showing his access at 2:19 a.m. He looked at the room like he had just closed a door. Damning, someone whispered. Dr. Okoye's face went pale. Lila stared at the photo for 2 seconds, then 3, and she saw it. Not the face. Faces were blurry on those cameras. She saw the timestamp, 2:14 a.m., and in the corner, a tiny label, CM3B. She lifted her eyes. Your Honor, may I approach? Judge Grayson hesitated, then nodded. Lila walked to the bench with the calm of someone stepping onto a stage she had rehearsed 100 times. She pointed to the photo. CM3B, she said. That camera was listed in the maintenance report as offline that night. Hale frowned. That's not true. Lila didn't argue. She turned to Dana Sloan. Miss Sloan, Lila said. Can security footage be backfilled? Can a still image be created from archived video from a different date and stamped with a new time? Dana's face tightened. It can, Dana said carefully, if someone has access to the video management system. Hale snapped. Objection, speculation. Lila held up her binder. Not speculation. I have the maintenance log. It shows CM3B failed at 11:02 p.m. and was scheduled for replacement the next morning. She flipped to the tab and handed the page to the bailiff. Judge Grayson read it, eyes moving faster now. Hale's confidence faltered for the first time, but then he recovered and leaned in with a new attack. Even if that camera had issues, Hale said, the badge log is still intact. Lila nodded once. That's why we verify, she repeated. Dana Sloan stood, and the room shifted again, because when a neutral expert stands, the air changes. Your Honor, Dana said. With the court's permission, I can examine the metadata of the still image and the log export. If they were altered, there will usually be traces. Judge Grayson looked like he hated needing someone else to make the room quiet, but he nodded. Proceed. The clerk connected Dana's forensic laptop to the courtroom monitor. Dana moved with trained speed, not flashy, not slow. She didn't look like someone trying to win. She looked like someone trying to be correct. She loaded the image file. Then she paused. Her eyes narrowed. Then she loaded the log export. She paused again longer. The room stopped breathing in small pieces. Dana turned to the judge. Your Honor, she said, the still image file shows it was created 4 days after the alleged incident. A shock ripple ran through the gallery. Hale's face hardened. That could be when it was exported. Dana nodded. Exporting does not rewrite original creation metadata when proper systems are used. She clicked again, and the badge log export has signs of manual insertion. Dana continued. There's a gap in the sequential event IDs that lines up exactly with the time Dr. Okoye's badge supposedly entered. The database event chain was broken and then stitched back. Dr. Okoye's knee stopped shaking. His whole body froze, like he didn't dare move in case hope shattered. Judge Grayson's voice came out low. Are you saying the log was altered? Dana met his eyes. Yes, she said. I'm saying it was edited. But then the biggest twist arrived like a door opening in the back of the room. A court officer stepped forward and handed the clerk a phone. The clerk's face changed as she read the screen. Then she looked up at the judge, uncertain. Your Honor, she said, there's someone outside requesting to submit an affidavit. It's the hospital's internal compliance officer. Victor Lang's head turned sharply. Lila's heart did not race. It clicked, because people don't confess unless they're more afraid of something else. Judge Grayson hesitated. Bring them in. A woman walked in wearing a plain blouse, eyes red, hands trembling around a sealed envelope. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her name was Naomi Reyes. She approached the bench like someone walking toward a storm. I'm Naomi Reyes, she said, voice breaking. Director of Compliance at Northbridge Medical. Hale stood. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Naomi swallowed. I filed this affidavit with the court this morning. I also provided a recorded statement to the State Inspector General. She held up her phone, screen already on, recording icon visible. I'm not here to argue, Naomi said. I'm here because I can't carry this anymore. The room was silent in a different way now. Not mocking, not curious, afraid. Naomi looked at Dr. Okoye. Doctor, she whispered, I'm sorry. Then she looked at the judge. Our inventory transfers were being rerouted, Naomi said. The North Campus storage label was a fake internal code. It was created to hide controlled shipments moving out of the hospital through a private contractor. Her hands shook harder. She breathed in like it hurt. The person who ordered me to keep quiet, Naomi said, was Victor Lang. Every head turned. Victor Lang didn't stand. He didn't shout. He simply sat there, as if he had been insulted by a small inconvenience. Hale's face drained. Your Honor. Naomi pushed on, words spilling faster now. I have emails, she said. I have authorization chains. I have a recorded call where Mr. Lang tells me to make the audit summary clean and to give the police a name they can use. She lifted the sealed envelope. The original transfer forms are inside. The ones I was told were unavailable. Judge Grayson stared at the envelope like it might explode. Lila spoke softly, almost to herself. Paperwork. But then, Victor Lang finally moved. He leaned toward someone in the row beside him, whispered something quick. The man began to stand. And in that moment, Lila saw the bigger hook behind the hook. Because Victor Lang didn't look panicked. He looked practiced. Like this wasn't the first room he thought he could control. Judge Grayson's voice rose. Bailiff. The bailiff stepped forward. Hold the gallery. Nobody leaves. Victor Lang's eyes slid to Lila for the first time. Not amused now. Measuring. Judge Grayson looked at Dana Sloan. You're telling me the state's evidence was forged? Dana nodded. Yes. Judge Grayson looked at Naomi Reyes. You're telling me the hospital audit was manipulated under pressure? Naomi nodded, tears rolling now. Yes. Judge Grayson looked at Dr. Okoye, whose face was still pale, but no longer broken. Then Judge Grayson's eyes narrowed at the prosecutor. Mr. Hale, the judge said. Did you know? Hale swallowed. No, Your Honor. I relied on what was provided. Judge Grayson turned, and for the first time, his authority sounded like it was pointed at the right target. This court finds the badge log and the still image inadmissible pending full forensic review. Judge Grayson said, the charges against Dr. Okoye are dismissed without prejudice. A sound escaped the gallery, half gasp, half prayer. Dr. Okoye covered his mouth with one hand. His shoulders shook once. And then Judge Grayson continued, colder now. The court also orders immediate referral of this matter to the Attorney General's office and the State Inspector General, he said, including investigation into potential obstruction, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. Victor Lang stood slowly this time, smooth as oil. Your Honor, he began. Judge Grayson cut him off with one hard tap of the gavel. Sit down, he said. You will speak to investigators, not to me. But then the deeper network showed its shadow, because as court officers moved toward Lang, Lila saw the clerk's hands tremble over the keyboard, and Dana Sloan's eyes flicked toward the back door, like she expected someone to run, and Naomi Reyes clutched her phone tighter, as if she feared it might be taken. This wasn't just one man. This was a pipeline, a contractor, a fake storage code, altered logs, a forged still image, a case built to sacrifice a doctor and protect a business. Judge Grayson ordered a recess. The room exploded into motion, reporters calling editors, attorneys whispering, officers shifting positions. Lila stood still, watching all of it like she had expected the storm to arrive the second the truth stepped into the light. Dr. Okoye turned to her, voice raw. You saved my life. Lila shook her head once. You saved lives for a living. I just refused to let them erase you. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Questions flew like darts. Who are you? How are you 17? Is this legal? Are you in danger? Lila didn't answer much. She walked with her ally, Ms. Evelyn Price, an older attorney who had mentored her in silence, who had taught her how to file motions, how to breathe in hostile rooms, how to read the gaps between facts. Evelyn's voice was low. This will get ugly. I know, Lila said. And it did. Anonymous calls. Strange cars parked near her apartment. A school counselor suddenly concerned about her attendance. Rumors that she faked her bar admission. Posts online calling her a fraud. Messages telling her to stop digging. But every threat only reminded her of the promise. She enrolled in formal training programs the next year, not because she needed permission to be capable, but because she needed the armor that systems recognized. Credentials, networks, official pathways. She learned to build cases that could survive storms. And she kept copies of everything, because she knew one day someone would try to erase the record again. But then, years later, the courtroom smelled the same. Old paper, cold metal, bright lights. Only this time, When Lila Carter walked in, she didn't carry a backpack. She carried a prosecutor's file. Her hair was pulled back neatly. Her suit fit. Her bar card wasn't surprise anymore. It was assumed. The plaque on the door read, State of __________________ V. Victor Lang et al. A racketeering case. Fraud. Evidence tampering. A network, finally named. Judge Theodore Grayson entered, older now, his expression tighter, his pride quieter. He looked down from the bench, and for a moment, Lila saw the flicker of the old man who once laughed at a hoodie. Then she saw something else. Regret. Judge Grayson cleared his throat. Miss Carter, he said. Lila stepped forward, calm as stone. Yes, Your Honor. The judge hesitated, then spoke. Voice firm, but different now. Less condescension, more caution. Are you ready to proceed? Lila opened her file. She glanced once toward the defense table, where Victor Lang sat now, no longer relaxed, no longer untouchable. Then she looked back at the bench, and she delivered the reversal line that closed the circle. Your Honor, she said, I've been ready for years. You just finally decided to look.